Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business and civic leaders to review the morning newspapers, tell us what's happening in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Before we start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Business Accountants and Advisors, who also provide me with my coffee every week. Okay, let's get on with introducing the fantastic panel. We have Juliet Davenport. She's a client scientist, renewable pioneer, businesswoman, environmentalist, entrepreneur. Juliet has spent 20 years not just advocating the solutions for solving the climate change, but actively solving them as well. She founded the first 100% renewable electricity supplier, Good Energy Group. Fantastic to have you on the show today, Juliet. Thanks for joining us. We also have Matthew Burke, headmaster of award-winning St Edward's School, an independent school with 600 students, over 100 staff, and a turnover of £10 million. And he's also got the best office I've ever seen in the county. And last but not least, my very good friend, Russell Warner, managing director of West End Office Suites. He's a thriving hub of small companies, 20 to 32 companies located within a stone's throw of Junction 30 in the M5. And he's also the area lead for the Federation of Small Business. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines. I'm just going to share the screen. Okay, let's quickly run through here. The Daily Mirror, pay relief but cuts pain, says the Mirror. The Guardian, NHS unions fury over PM insists pay offer is final. The Daily Mail, will doctors now end their callous strikes? The Daily Express, fees paid by migrants will fund pay rises. The Eye, pay rises for 1 million UK workers as Number 10 tries to end strikes. The Daily Star, to bees or not to bees? Climate change blamed for the humblebee trouble. I'm sure maybe Juliet might have something to say about that. The Metro, England stars sleep pills addictions. Very sad case of Dele Alli, the Tottenham football player now at Everton. The Financial Times, Sunak issues challenge to public sector unions with final offer of 6.5% pay rise. The Daily Telegraph, doctors urged to give in to pay deal. And the story that really caught my eye here was actually about the COVID will hurt education for years, says the IMF. And the Times, Sunak gives NHS strike doctors 6% final pay. And you've got to give it to Johnson. He can't recall his COVID phone passcode, says the Times. Funny that. And the Sun, Babs hubby finds love again. That's the roundup of the news headlines. Let's go over to you, Matthew. Thanks for joining us today. What have you picked out from the papers?
Well, there's a few stories. You'll forgive me if I pick an education one to start with, but it's one particularly around the independent sector. And there's an article in The Guardian by Esther Adley talking about the ending of tax breaks for private schools. And it's obviously a topic of interest for me as well as everyone in the independent education sector. And I think there's a lot of articles, a lot of discussion and debate about this at the moment, but I think the headlines are fantastic. It's attention grabbing from that point of view. But I think actually what she doesn't do and what others I have read don't do is necessarily look at the impact on the individuals. So, whenever you see a story like this, it's usually a photo of Eton or Harrow or Winchester. And actually most independent schools aren't like that. And I think also you've got families, and there are families where I am, where they make massive sacrifices to send their children to us. And I don't like this pitting the education sector or sectors of the education sector against each other, because actually we do better from when we collaborate. And I think it's slightly misleading as well to talk about it being it's a further tax, I think, actually on hardworking parents. And it's punishing them for exercising the choice that they might make around where they'd like their children to be educated. But I know from a business point of view, it's also important to point out that actually the independent schools across the sector contribute a huge amount to UK PLC. So I was looking at this, and you also know I have various roles nationally with education institutions and associations as well. But at £14.1 billion was contributed to the UK economy by the independent sector, and it employs 282,000 people across the sector. And actually in tax revenue this year, 4.3 billion will be given to the government from the independent sector. And it's the old adage, 3.8 billion is saved by the children that we educate, actually, because otherwise they would take up places in a state-funded school. So I know it's a hot political topic at the moment. It was a lovely piece actually by Esther in The Guardian, but I think there are a few, playing not necessarily as accurate as it could be in terms of all the figures around there. Another one that caught my eye.
What would be the cost, Matthew, to the school? I mean, how if you lost 20 or 30 kids?
The Conservative, the estimates across the sector are that between 10 and 25% of children would leave independent schools with the introduction of VAT onto fees. I mean, for us, that could be up to 150 children. Yeah. Now, I don't think there are schools in Cheltenham that have capacity to take 150 children, which then would obviously have an impact on class sizes in those state-funded schools, but also on the budgets, because they're then having to spend more money educating them. Different schools are doing different things. We're trying to do everything we can to mitigate passing that cost on to parents. So where can we make savings? What can we do around there? It opens a whole can of worms, Mark, to be honest, because you could, there will be exceptions to VAT. So if you're a boarding school, boarding wouldn't be covered. If you've got a nursery, that wouldn't be covered. Lunches wouldn't be covered. Before school, after school care, because then you'd have to start charging other providers for those things. So the numbers, I don't think stack up from my point of view in terms of the revenue. It then becomes a philosophical issue, and then that's quite difficult to challenge.
I think the other thing that you hit the nail on the head is a lot of parents make a lot of sacrifices. We put our youngest daughter through King's School when she was younger, and I was really worried. When I first rocked up, I thought, we drive a little Fiesta and a Hyundai, and well, actually, I had a Jag at the time, but so we won't get to that. But anyway, and I thought we'd rock up and there'd be Lamborghinis and all Beamers and Mercs, and it's not like that at all. Actually, there was only one Lamborghini parked outside. A lot of people made an awful lot of sacrifices to get their kids there, and as we did over the years, and she had a fantastic education. Both our girls did. Thanks for that, Matthew. We've kind of run out of time on that particular subject. Is there one story you could pick out very quickly? Another one?
You touched on it, actually. It was the Boris Johnson WhatsApp thing. I just thought it's interesting that kind of government by WhatsApp as opposed to Blair's government by sofa. But I'm not necessarily sure how comfortable I feel, or we feel, that that's how government was being done. But also, issues of passwords. Listen, we've all got lots of passwords for lots of different things. I wonder if they have checked things like 1066. It would have been something particularly, I'm sure, patriotic for Boris Johnson in terms of a passcode, but it was just interesting around that.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, Russell, what have you picked out from us, please?
So, Mark, I start off looking at the local papers, the Citizen and the Stroud News and Journal, and a bit of a plug for Punchline. Most of these articles in there had already been covered in Punchline during the week, so that stumped me a little bit there. There's an article about saying that Brixton Port redevelopment's been going to be delayed, which is a bit of a shame, because I think that's a major thing going on in Stroud. So I looked at the national papers, and I see a couple of stories which Juliet might want to comment on as well. That hydrogen boiler plants apparently have been scrapped, and obviously that was the solution. And we're looking for solutions for environmental problems. And if we can get them from technology, that's obviously an easier way for everybody. And it's something that actually happened, because getting people to change behaviour is quite difficult. So that's unfortunate, but apparently it's not going to work as well as people thought it was going to work. I saw another one on a climate change in The Guardian, which was that the UK and Switzerland need to be doing more than most countries. And one of the things they looked at there was maybe working out how do we actually cool our buildings down. And I'm going to plug my business here. Heat pumps is one of the solutions, which we've had for over 10 years. Because heat pumps, generally, if they're set up correctly, can heat you up in the winter and cool you down in the summer. Work both ways. So that was the two stories I sort of picked from the national papers. So that's where I am at the moment, Mark. I've got tons of papers everywhere here, but and you cover so much in Punchline, it's difficult to find new stories.
Thanks very much. And I hate to burst your bubble, mate, but we covered the Brinscombe Port story as well. You must have missed that one.
Yeah, I thought you
So,
did.
yeah, we did that like last week. Thanks
So,
for that, Russell. Thanks for the plug as well. Julia, okay, what have you picked out from us, please?
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. So I've picked up the heat wave going through Europe at the moment. So obviously we're banging straight into summer holidays. Matthew, I'm sure, is well aware that all his students have now gone on holiday. People heading off on holiday to mainland Europe to be faced with potentially 48 degrees centigrade, which is some of the hottest. I mean, the last couple of weeks we've recorded the hottest days in the world ever. So we are now beginning to see some of the impacts around climate change, and it's not just about, as Russell was talking about, trying to find some of the solutions. It's also about how is that going to impact our lives. So are we actually going to start cancelling holidays? I mean, if you're a vulnerable person who doesn't breathe well, has various respiratory issues, going on holiday to 48 degrees is not a good idea. And so there's a load of debate about what's happening on insurance companies. Can you claim back for not going on holiday? So I think these are going to become more frequent in terms of our challenges going forward. And there's going to be more challenges for the travel companies, more challenges for us as individuals, as we trying to escape, because at the same time that Europe has got sort of what they call the Cerberus, the Hound of Hell heat wave, we have now got weather warnings. I don't know whether you noticed the next 2 days in the UK of wind and rain. So staying at home isn't necessarily a fantastic option either. So I think it's going to be really interesting for us. Is like, how do we cope with these changes in weather in terms of what we do as individuals?
Can I ask you then, would it put you off booking a holiday abroad? Have you got a summer holiday booked and at 45 degrees, would you go, whoa, that's a bit too hot for me?
Yeah, I mean, we many years ago, we took what was quite a fun exploration by train. So we went from Stroud to Turkey by train. And there was a bit of a heat wave at that time. It wasn't up at 48, but there were some parts of Bulgaria and Hungary, which was closer to 40. And I have to say, it's just very hard because, okay, so if you're lying and doing nothing, that's an option. But if you're doing any form of movement or traveling, it's really challenging. So personally, right now, quite liking the UK weather. And I haven't booked anything this summer because I've been doing lots of different projects here. So I think I'm going to prefer to be here right now. I don't think I want to be jetting off to 48 degrees.
Well, I don't even know, but I'm an ex-chef and I was stationed in Belize and, in the jungle there. And it was around 45, 48 sometimes in the kitchen. And we were working in it continually, 12-hour shifts and stuff. Yeah. And it is absolutely exhausting. And I'd walk in and open a tin of beans and you just pour off with sweat. I'm going to ask the rest of the panel very quickly. Matthew, would it put you off? Russell, would it put you off? I'll start with you, Matthew. Yes or no, would it put you off going on a holiday at 45 degrees?
Yeah, yes, it would. Yes, it would. I'm not sure I would cope particularly well.
Especially if you're wearing a suit and a tie. Probably wouldn't be good. Russell, what about yourself there?
Yeah, definitely. I need to do things on holiday. So the last thing I do is just sit around. So that really limits what you can do when it's that hot.
Yeah, I agree. My wife likes the sun. She'll just lie there forever. I get very bored. So, okay, one last story then, Juliet. What else you picked out? And then we'll move on to our own individual stuff.
So I picked something out in Punchline about the sort of flatlining of the economy and actually what's going on in interest rates. So interest rates continue to be, so the headlines I think still in the major newspapers around inflation and what are we expecting in terms of inflationary pressures by the end of this week. But really, it's then the response of the Central Bank of England to the cost of money, and for businesses to be able, if they've already got debt within their organisations, whether they're funding things by debt or whether they've got assets which are partially funded by debt, the increase in cost in that may not have an immediate effect, but it will have a longer term effect. And so it's what is that going to do to businesses locally if we continue to see interest rates go up?
Well, what we're seeing is companies going pop, and there's been a rise of insolvencies. A couple of stories I picked out very quickly. The Daily Mail caught my eye. Was this one? patients pulling their own teeth amid shortage of NHS dentists. That's what the mail say. And a story in the Sun as well. It says official sweeteners linked to liver cancer. This is allegedly from Dr. Pepper Zero. All sorts of things, and also chewing gum as well. They're saying that it could actually cause some sort of cancer as well. Just eat, drink water. That's what I say. Okay, right. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Matthew, thanks ever so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about. I had a fantastic tour around your school the other day. Absolutely amazing. So I'm assuming all the kids are gone now, have they?
Yeah, we broke up last Friday. That's a scary thing for some people to be thinking about, but I'm still here, obviously. But yeah, no, it's nice. I mean, summer is the time where loads of work gets done. We have a few summer camps based at the school, but they start when the state schools break up. So we've got a couple of weeks here where we can crack on and get some work done, and then try and get as much done before September. Yeah.
So has the school had a good year?
Yeah. I mean, we have. I mean, we're doing really well, as you know, and we're fortunate. You know, the last year we've picked up quite a few national and international awards around pastoral care, well-being. I've been fortunate to get some awards for leadership. So that's lovely. We got recognised as a world-class school for high performance learning. So one of about 40 schools around the world that has that. So yeah, I mean that's fantastic, but actually it's the impact that then has on the children, because you know that's the reason that we're here. And I think it's nice for parents to have a sense of pride that you know that the school they've chosen to send their children to is getting this recognition. And you know it's nice to have that at a national level, not just at a local level with lots of people wanting to join and be part of our community.
I think you're being tremendously modest, to be fair. I mean, it is an amazing accolade for you for the work that you've done. And at the end of the day, it's all about leadership. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned being a teacher there or headmaster at St Edward's?
So there's probably lots and some that I probably can't share, but I think the biggest thing, I think, honestly, and everyone in leadership knows this, it's the team. It's nice to get the accolades individually, but that wouldn't happen without the support of the team that are here, and that's the leadership team, the staff, the parents, and of course the students. And I think you know a school does well, a business does well when everyone's united, when everyone's pulling in the same direction, and understands what you want. You know, we're not selective from an academic point of view, and yet our results rival pretty much everyone locally who is selective. And that doesn't come by accident. It's not by magic. It's hard work, but it's people believing in what we are as a school. And I'm just really, really fortunate to be head of this school at this time when we're doing all the fantastic things that we are.
Yeah, congratulations, great job, and thanks again for the tour. Really enjoyed it. Okay, Russell, let's go over to you, mate. I'm going to bring up on screen your let's see if I can. First of all, he says. Hold on, let's share. There we go. Hopefully you can see that.
I can see this. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's your West End office suites. Now, how many companies have you got there, Russell, and how many offices are there?
So we got 41 offices, Mark, and in the low 30s a number of companies, because some companies have expanded and taken on more than one office. We really aim to take companies between 1 and 6 people, and we aim to be the best offices in the area, and I think we are. And if someone disputes that, let me know, and I'll try and make sure whatever the extra thing they got we'll introduce. We also try to be green and sustainable as far as possible. We've got solar panels, car charging points. I've had air source heat pumps, as mentioned, and our customers are generally very, very local, so we're actually cutting down their commute time. Companies that previously have maybe driven to Cheltenham, Gloucester or Bristol can now come to us. And I know all the businesses on first name terms because we've got a little community here.
Well, the other thing I just want to say is that I go around all over the county, as you know. I go to something like 120 business parks, and I must admit, yours is one of the nicest looking parks I go to. If you don't mind me saying, it really is. It's just a nice vibe to it. Are people back in the office, Russell? You know, obviously working from home.
Yes, they are now. I would say all of them. And it started, first people to come back were the one-man businesses. Well, actually, they never really left because it's like being in your own front room. So we got a lot of one-person businesses, and they could carry on trading pretty much. They got high-speed Wi-Fi here. I did have one customer ring up, say, "Can I come in?" I said, "Well, it's your office. It's up to you." So I just need to, because we at home there's too many distractions, and I haven't got good enough Wi-Fi. Some businesses, we got 2 hairdressers and a couple of beauticians here. Obviously, couldn't trade for a while, but they're back. So although we're offices, we've got some nice sort of health and care businesses here. Then we've got some bigger businesses which had more dilemmas, and when we got, even though we aim at 1 to 6, there's sometimes a headquarters of buildings, sometimes people got bigger offices. We have got some of the bigger companies don't come in every day of the week. So yesterday I saw one business came in, it's got about 30 employees, and I think they had all 30 employees in yesterday, but I haven't seen that since pre-COVID when they've all been in here. And I think that must have been some kind of group meeting.
Now, I just want to say to you also, if I zoom out this map here, there's an awful lot of development going along here. If I come out here, obviously there's the road that goes to Stonehouse and to Stroud, as we all know, which is Bondsmill Trading Estate. Over here is going to be the new. Whoops, we've all disappeared. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We can
Okay,
see
sorry.
you.
Okay, sorry.
Eco Park, Eco Innovative Commerce, Eco Park, and football ground.
Yep, that's it. Thank you very much. Sorry.
On the other side of the M5, you've got 2 planning applications put in for mainly residential, which are a few hundred or few thousand houses. So we are going to be completely surrounded by a new development. We've very green. We still farm here. It's actually my grandfather's farm, and we still farm sheep and cattle here, and occasionally, hay and things like that. So we'll see. But at the moment, we're very happy here. It's a good sized business for us. There's a personal touch here. I know all the businesses. One of my clients is architect. He said it's important you keep things to a human dimension, and a community feeling. I think is really important. But we could get swamped with everything that's happening around us. That is a possibility.
Well, I mean, that's why I brought it up, actually, because obviously we ran a number of stories, and there's an awful lot of housing, a lot of development, but to me, I think it's going to be a good thing. It's only about the traffic more than anything else. If you have a lot of house, I don't know if you know, by the way, I interviewed Boris Johnson down in that housing estate just after the pandemic. Oh, yeah. And I sat there 3 meters away from him with 3 other journalists, and we all quizzed him for. It was actually fantastic. We had 45 minutes with the Prime Minister, which not being funny, not many people get the opportunity, no matter what you think about politics. And he was actually really, really good, great fun, and did actually ask all questions. Anyway, I asked him about the Ukraine war, one of them, and another one about apprenticeships. Anyway, I digress. Russell, thanks ever so much for that. Juliet, let's come over to you. Great to have you on the show. My goodness, you've won all these hats and Good Energy Group, and hopefully we're going to do a big interview about that as well very shortly. So what are you doing now, and how long is it since you stepped down from the Good Energy Group?
So it's a couple of years since I stepped down, and I've been doing a few things. So I wrote this, the Green Startup, which was kind of a bit of the journey that I took through Good Energy, but also I went and interviewed a bunch of other entrepreneurs to kind of get their ideas of how can you green your business. So it kind of goes on a journey through the whole of a business. So whether it's your offices, but then the brilliant work that obviously Russell's been doing in terms of decarbonising office and thinking about where you choose your offices to be, through to kind of what do you do with your pensions. We all have to have pensions for our employees. Where are those pensions invested? And making sure people are asking those questions. So that the book is a kind of how-to, gives a bit, it's got some storytelling in it as well. So I give some examples of things I did well or did badly throughout my time at Good Energy. And then since then, I've been working with various businesses and other organizations when I left, I sort of wrote out kind of what I was interested in to impact on climate. And it kind of ranges from, I work with the Professional Institute for Energy, the Energy Institute, through to kind of infrastructure play, so building solar rooftops and curbside electric vehicle charging. So a whole kind of range of different things.
I mean, it's so diverse, isn't it? Because you're executive board director of a number of companies as well. How do you keep so busy? Well, how do you fit it all in?
Well, to be honest, you kind of the actual formal meetings aren't that often. It's more the fill-in pieces. And I guess one of the things is that you've got to stay current. So actually staying, if you keep round a particular area, staying current is not too difficult. And you have to watch the overlaps, but they do enhance each other. And so understanding one, then you tend to understand another.
I mean, your piece earlier when you said about climate change and it being 45 degrees in Spain and all the rest of it, I mean, it must be frustrating for someone like yourself who's been championing this for most of your adult life to see that actually people didn't listen. The government didn't act. What do you say about that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, governments did act, but they just acted too slowly. So I think where we are right now is that we have some of the baseline, so we have the potential to move forward. In a sense, we need the public permission to actually accelerate now, because we have the technology. So we haven't been doing nothing for the last 20, 25 years. We do have the technologies. We do know how to deploy them. The piece is that we've now got to make the public commitments to speed and being able to push these things out at speed, and to allowing these developments to be amongst us, because there will need to be planning to make these things happen. So we're not in a brilliant place, but we're not in an awful place as well.
Yeah, it's actually funny enough. I think one of the councils down that way just turned down a massive solar park, and that's the thing. They're going to be up against not in my backyard, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, and solar developers need to be careful about. Obviously, there needs to be a balance. So solar developments that overtake things, or I mean, you should be able to develop solar developments without people really seeing them or on rooftops. So that there are reasons for turning some of these things down. We shouldn't say yes to everything. I mean, it's interesting. Russell mentioned hydrogen boilers in people's houses. I mean, there are much better uses for hydrogen, particularly in high temperature engineering. And putting them into people's homes isn't the safer. The hydrogen atom is a difficult atom. It's very small, so it tends to come out of pipelines very easily. So we're much better off concentrating where our usage of, at least to begin with, and focusing in different industries. So I think that the news is not all bad, but it's just we have to tell better stories and inform the public better about what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it.
Okay, well, thanks very much for all that, Juliet. Okay, we're kind of wrapping up, unfortunately. So we're going to go over to what's caught your eye in this week's Punchline. I'm going to go back to you, Matthew. What's caught your eye in this week's Punch, please?
There's lots of things, and Russell did you a good service, didn't he, earlier on in terms of where you go. But sticking to education, I think there was an item that you picked up. I have an alarm going off. Oh no, it's gone. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The events at Tewkesbury School earlier this week, and I know you covered it, and it was of national level from that point of view. But it just reminded me of some real true heroes. Actually, I think that the teacher, Jamie Sampson, who we hope is doing well. But I also thought the head teacher, Kathleen McGillicuddy, did a phenomenal job in terms of communicating, leading that community, and the stories that came out that you covered, but also others covered, I think just spoke of a real, genuinely fantastic community. Parents who were communicated with well, systems were put in place. I just think it's not a good news story, but I think it's a fantastic story to show what a great job that school did, that school's leaders did. And obviously appreciate the fantastic work that our emergency services do at a drop of a hat.
And also the sort of backup systems that they had in place to school, the safeguarding and things like that, and the
I mean, listen,
we lockdown rules.
We all do that. We have lockdown drills here. We have, and we go, and you do it in the hope that you never need to do it.
Do you ever practice it, Matthew?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, we have to practice fire drills, obviously, but we also practice those lockdown drills. And listen, it's a good job that school had done it, and it shows that it worked. But I just think it's full credit to that school, that community, and those that helped on that day.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's a traumatic story when we were obviously following as it happened. and all of them did an amazing job. They could really
Well,
help.
you know,
help life.
my wife is also a head. She's head at Newham Community School, so not a million miles away from there. And it doesn't take long for news like that to spread. And well done to them.
It really shook it up. As you know, my daughter is a school teacher, and my brother and sister-in-law are police officers. So fair play. Right, okay, thanks for that, mate. Russell, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline?
So the military cars, their planning application in Wotton. I think this is great for the county and great for the country. I think Renishaw, which is the same, obviously under co-ownership of Sir David, it's a brilliant for the county. I mean, with my FSB hat on, whenever we went into any careers events, Renishaw were there. They were in the primary schools. They're trying to get people into engineering. Both my children have gone there through school trips as they've grown up, and one of them's actually ended up working there, going down the apprenticeship routes. So I think this is great for Gloucestershire. I did notice that there was a local parish councils weren't so
Keen
behind it, and it's unfortunate. Everyone's. I think it's a human reaction, not in my backyard, but this seems like a major strategic thing for almost the country, definitely for the county.
I mean, if a parish council turned something like that down, they'd be absolutely barking. It's a bit like Bath turning down Dyson when he wanted to open up his 60 million technology hub down there, going back all then. Of course, he moved it to Malaysia. Thanks for that, Russell. I agree with you. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece of engineering as well. And I did a piece with Chris Pocket. I don't know if you saw me walking through with Chris Pocket of Renishaw as well. Juliet, okay, what have you picked out for this week's Punchline, please?
So I picked out the article on biodiversity net gain and the requirements for town planning and planners to think about 10% biodiversity. So the concept, so as we move into a world where climate change is going to impact us more, making sure we have decent biodiversity will protect us. So making sure that we have decent woodlands that can make sure that you're not getting runoff, making sure that we've got we're thinking through flood protection, and biodiversity net gain for me, if we can keep it locally particularly, is going to be really important. We have a fantastic county. It is absolutely stunning, our county, and trying to make sure that every time we do a development, we maintain that is so important.
I couldn't agree with you more. No, thank you ever so much for that. And that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. The half hour goes really, really quick. I'd just like to thank my fantastic panel for today. Thank our brilliant sponsors, Hazelwood's Business Accounts and Advisors. And finally, all of you for watching Punchline. And remember, we'll be back next week, and it's all in the Punchline. See you then. Bye.
Bye.